Hello everyone, welcome to the second video in the series of Python. Well, in our last video we left over here. Before starting the topics which we are supposed to cover today, if you are following this video like simultaneously after finishing that you started with the second one, I will advise you to reboot your laptop because that was the one of the option they gave when we were installing PyCharm, that reboot later or reboot now. So I chose reboot later. And before starting this video, I already rebooted my system. So please reboot it so that your files are properly installed and then we can initiate with rest of our video. Thank you so much. So we will starting with the video now. As you saw, we created my first project in the last video. And here by default main.py. Py is extension which is given to the Python files. So this is already by default created. I will be creating a new file now for the practice of rest of my project for understanding what are variables and how the program structure should be when we are dealing with Python. So we'll right click on my first project, whatever your project name is, go to new and then choose Python file. You can choose file also. If you're choosing file, then you have to give extension by yourself. You have to write whatever name you are giving .py. But if you're using Python file, by default, py as extension will appear. So I will recommend going for Python file. Here you can give name to the file. So let's say I'm naming it as variables and then click on Python file and you will see variables.py will be created. So now we will commence with structure of Python program. So here we go. First thing which I always discuss, whether it is Java program structure or Python program structure, is comments. Comments are very underrated topic, I'll say. But this is very important. In order to increase readability of your code, it is very important for you to understand the concept of comments. Comments are non-executable statements whose execution will be ignored at runtime. So anything which you want Python to be ignored, you don't want Python to read it or execute it, you can make it as comment. For example, if I'm writing a code and code has like 50 lines, how I'm going to increase its readability, how I'm going to make it easy to read? By writing comments in between. So for example, I'm writing a program to maybe subtract two number and it's a huge program, let's imagine. But if there is no headings, there is no comments in between that this code is written for which purpose, it is super difficult for any programmer to understand and read it. But when I'm writing a program and on top, if it is written, this is a program to subtract two number, and later in front of the code, it is written, this code is written for this purpose. So readability of the code and understanding of the code will be enhanced. So that's why comments play very important role. It also plays important role at the time of debugging. So for example, I wrote 50 lines of code and I'm getting error in the code. Now I'm not sure which line is giving me error. So what I can do is I'll check first few lines. I think it's working fine. I can make them comment. And now I'm checking rest of the code. So in debugging also, comments plays very important role. Anyhow, we'll understand comments now. So practically, let's see. I want to write or to subtract two numbers. It's giving me error. Put your cursor on top of it. It is saying unresolved reference to. You know what, guys? One thing you need to understand. Whenever you're writing any code in the editor of any IDE or maybe on command prompt or notepad, it will always expect you to write the code of that language. If it is Python, then Python will accept that it should be Python code. You cannot write simple normal English over there. That's why it is giving you error that, I don't understand this. If suddenly I start speaking in some different language which you don't understand, you will not recognize that. So it's the same thing. Python is not able to recognize this. Now, of course, I'm not writing this line to be recognized too. I'm writing it to make my own notes, to make my own comments. So if we want to do so, we can just select this and press Control/. Look at this. It is comment now. So now Python will not read this line and will ignore this. This is non-executable lines or statements. Or if you're putting it in front of any code also, it will be non-executable code. Code won't be executed. So this is how you can make comments. This is for single line. if you have multiple lines, for example, two, and then something here, I'm writing add, two, then numbers. So these are multiple lines. It was single straight line, and these are multiple lines. If there are multiple lines, you can give three double quotes like this. And at the end, when it is closing, then again, three times double quotes. So this is how you can make it as comment. You have options here also on in the menu. You can go to code, and here you see comment with line comment, block comment. You have the shortcuts also listed over here. So this is how we can make it as comment. Now we will understand the concept of variables. This is second part of Python program structure. Well, the good thing about programming in Python language is a variable is created the moment you first assign a value to it. For example, when I'm writing a assign 5, variable is created at the same moment when you assign value to it. What is variable? Let's understand that first. In any programming language, when you wish to execute something, you need to reserve memory for it. And when you create a variable and assign value to it, actually you are reserving a memory for that variable so that you can perform the operation which are required. So always you have to create a variable and then assign value to it. So this is what we do in Python. When we created a variable and assign value, variable is created. Now, if you already know Java, and the comparison always comes in the head. Java, I believe, syntax wise, is little complicated as compared to Python. How? Look at this line only. If you have to declare variable in Java, you have to write data type first, then name of the variable, and then you assign it to the value. Here we are not specifying any data type. So we are not supposed to give any type of variable, and they can be adapted to any type later. Later also, if you want to change value of A to some other data type, you can. Isn't it a good news? Because now we are not restricted that A is of type this, you cannot change it, and you have to declare it with any data type. It will adapt to whatever value you will give. How we'll give this value and how we can check whether the data type, it is taking it as integer or not. We'll see that. We all understand 5 is integer, it is not character. So I'm going to take example for this to show you that how we declare any variable on PyCharm. So I'm writing exactly same code where I've left. So it is A assign 5. Now, if you want to see data type of A, you can, because inbuilt the data type is already assigned to A. So Python is dynamically typed language. That means whatever you will type as a value, variable will adapt to that data type. Now look at this. I assign value as 5. So dynamically now A's data type will be integer. I need not to specify that. In order to check what data type A is adapted to, we will write a command called type, and in brackets you can write the name of the variable. Of course, if you want to print that on console, you have to write command called print, and in brackets, you can write this. So right click on it, run variable, and see this. Class is int. That means this is integer type. So this is how we can declare variables. You can declare variables for any type. For example, B, you can declare it as Python. Guys, let's see, there is a red line beneath it. Let's put our cursor on top of it. Look at this. They're saying reformat the file. I mean, there should be byte spaces around the operator. So whenever you're writing any operator, like is equal to is operator, always give one space here and one space here. That's all. Even after this, one space here and one space here. So this is how you should be assigning value to any variable. There should be white space in front and end of the operator. So this is variable defining. You can define it of any type, for example, by. And of course, guys, variable names are case sensitive. So if I'm writing B assign Python, then this B can be assigned to something else because both are different. So give space, and then here I can write as 2.6, any decimal value. Here also reformat the file. So this is how we can assign value to it. Now we'll move to the next topic, data types. Data types represent what kind of value it is and which operation can be performed on it. Simply, what is data type? Type of data this variable will hold. Type of data which we will be storing in any variable. It is integer, it is character, is it string? So what we're gonna store into a particular variable defines the type of data. And also what sort of operations can be performed on it. For example, you cannot add two characters. You can add two numbers. So you can perform arithmetic operation on numbers. Of course, for characters also you can concatenate them, but I'm talking about typical adding. So we can't add anything in it, right? So that's why data types are very important so that we can understand which type of values is getting stored and what operations we can perform on it. So now what I was just telling you is the same thing here. Python is a dynamically typed language. Therefore, we do not need to specify variable type while declaring it. Whatever value we assign to the variable, based on that, data type will be automatically assigned. Now, these are some of the data types we have in Python. Integers, which is represented as int, and this tells us whole numbers such as 3, 300, and it doesn't matter what is the size or length of that number is. If you're writing integers, then you can store any length of number over there. Floating point, it is for decimal numbers, numbers with decimals, and the representation is float, and you can store number with decimals in it. Strings will store strings in it. Now, one thing I want to tell in string is you can store string with inverted quotes also or single quotes too. So you can use single quotes and store strings. So there is no restriction on type of quotations you're using to enclose that particular string. Lists, dictionary, tuples, sets, booleans, we'll discuss that later one by one because it requires a little bit of explanation. So we will move ahead and do practical of it in order to understand.